Alright YouTube, it's time to talk about cats in the occult. Video number 102 in this series, the occult video 102. Getting right up there. I'm trying to get to like 2, maybe 300 over time. It's going to take a long time to do that, but these are interesting topics. I wanted to discuss cats in a spiritual sense, specifically the fact that I don't think people quite realize it's not an unironic it's not an ironic statement when people say cat worship is still going on. Indeed it is. It's the most common spiritual path in the Western world, perhaps in the entire world. Cats are applauded universally for both their attitude and for their action. Of course, in ancient times, one of the main importances of our feline friends, and I've got 2 of them on the bed at the moment, was literally reducing the rodent population and getting rid of trash. Because they would eat it. You get rodents in your cave, you get rodents in your little village or fishing town or whatever it happens to be. Naturally, these cats suppressed the rodent population. They're more clean than the rodents that they feasted upon. And in fact, it was a sad statement that during the Middle Ages, during the Black Death, unfortunately, municipalities had wiped out much of their cat populations because of a fear of witchcraft in some cases. As a result, the rodent population in many of these urban areas exploded. The plague came. The fleas were carrying the plague. They were all over the rodents. Whoops. Yeah, poor people. Not that the feral cats wouldn't have carried the plague fleas as well, but they were less prevalent than the rodents, because for every cat, there were hundreds and hundreds of rodents. The cats would have controlled their population, but now it skyrocketed thereafter. You've got all this grain lying around in these sort of open-air buildings in many cases, and just in piles and sacks, easily accessible to rodents. It's no wonder that so many people died in such unsanitary conditions. We have this problem today. Cats are great at killing rodents. And you see the occasional mouse around here, and the cats will kill it. The cats will eat it. They'll also eat small birds, bugs, anything like that. All the creepy crawlies, all the spiders and beetles and rats and things that people have developed an imagery around over time as being bad, often related to their poisonous in some way, like a spider bite might be poisonous to a person. Or they carry disease. They would have identified it back then as a miasmus or general filth and uncleanliness, some sort of spiritual plague. Of course, we now know it has to do with germs. Cats take care of many of these things. Now, additionally, it's not like dogs. Dog imagery, especially wolf imagery, and wolves, untamed wild wolves, it's a different type of imagery. They go free across the countryside, and they're cunning, and they're swift, and they hide in the pines and watch you when you're gardening. And they are, masterful, whatever. They have a different spiritual feeling to them, among especially European lore. With cats, it's a little bit different. The prevalence of mankind with dogs was partially out of pragmatism. These creatures that were loosely termed tamed in ancient time, I think about 10,000 years ago, they were already taming some of these hybridized wolf-like creatures. They were used for hunting. I'm sure that they were good to snuggle with for warmth on a cold night when you're sitting in your cave or your wigwam or whatever. But ultimately, it was mostly about gaining protection. I have a feeling that much like we now know that certain chimpanzees have been known to actually feed wild dogs in order to get them to stick around as an added layer of protection against larger predators or something like that. And they don't attack each other. They get along fairly well. Early man was more than capable of throwing their bones and their gristle and the scraps that humans weren't really eating to wild dogs to keep them around. They probably identified that these dogs went after bears, went after, maybe a saber-toothed tiger or something like that. Some of the predators they were truly concerned about, as opposed to these, wild dogs that didn't really attack man unless they were starving or something. So it was a win-win. They got food, mankind got some extra protection from a creature that was also more alert, could hear things coming more easily than humans could. It was great. But cats were different. Cats arrive primarily in the wake of not the scraps that man is leaving behind, which are already being eaten by the dogs, but as man goes into agriculture and horticulturalism, cats are feasting upon those rodents. How much more wonderful is it, as opposed to bringing down a bear, share some of it with your dog friends. Okay, you've got a few good meals out of that, I'm sure. That's wonderful, roasted by the fire. The cat, on the other hand, is sitting around the grain silo and protecting thousands and thousands of meals from rodents, because the rodents aren't going to get anywhere near it. Cats were more intrinsic to the development of early man. After agriculture begins, cats, not dogs, are much more important. Man had the ability to build a fence or a wall to keep out the bears, to keep out the saber-toothed tiger, or whatever else he was happened to be worried about. He had developed weaponry and the rudiments of what would become leather armor and things to help him defend against these things. But how do you defend against rodents? The rodents don't come one by one, attack you, rip your throat out, and take your food and use you for food. The rodents come in swarms, rapidly multiply. Man couldn't deal with that because he had become static. He had set up shop in permanent dwellings. And cats, not dogs, were primarily responsible for protecting the foodstuffs. In the early years of hunter-gathering, a lack of dogs would have meant maybe once in a while something that the dogs would have helped bring down didn't get brought down, and you went hungry for a few days. Well, that's rather sad. Later on, though, without the cats, you experience an entire famine. Potentially your entire winter is filled with starvation, half your population dies. It's a much more telling contribution to mankind that cats have delivered than dogs. It's no wonder that more cultures appear to venerate cats than dogs. Secondly, their attitude. You look at a dog, it's very obedient, it learns very easily. It's capable of playing fetch and so forth. It will essentially do whatever you tell it to do unless there's an extremely compelling reason not to. You can train a dog, even if it's hungry, to utterly ignore food and just sit there and play dead. A cat won't do that. A cat's more like a human. A cat doesn't give a fuck about those sorts of things. The cat wants to be fed, and it wants the nice warm fireside bed and things like that. And frequently will annoy you, maybe give you a good old nibble on the feet if you don't supply it with the things that it needs. If its litter box is not changed, it'll come in and it'll piss on your bed to let you know, hey, the normal place I piss in is dirty, human. Why don't you clean it up? There's more personality there. I'm a cat person, I'll say that in full disclosure here so that my bias is clear. I've always been around cats. I don't mind dogs. Certain kinds of dogs are adorable. I think huskies are absolutely adorable. There are other breeds, chow chows, honestly. They're, big and puffy and fluffy. Sort of the Chinese palace guard dogs. Yeah, they're cute. I have no problem. And dogs do have a marked degree of intelligence. But I see cats as more intelligent. Specifically because they won't go against their own instinctual drives just to please you and get a treat out of it. To the cat's mind, I guess, it's, why should I sit here while my stomach is growling, begging for a treat? My food bowl's right over there. Screw you, human. I'm going to go eat. We'll play later. I'll make you my slave later, too, and you can pet me. And cats know how to do that. And they are manipulative. They've almost co-evolved just to be cuter. I don't think that that's coincidence. I think, honestly, not just through artificial means, but through natural means as well, cats have become cuter over time than their sort of wild counterparts. Then again, you look at some of these wild, you look at a lynx, or even a bobcat or something, they're pretty cute. They're pretty fluffy looking. Lynxes especially, big puffy animals. I had to break your neck. But at the same time, if one was tame, yeah, it'd be quite a fluff butt to pet. And cat worship is extremely common. When people are spreading around images of cats doing cute little things with their paws, tucked into bed, napping, kittens playing, or cats getting scared by a cucumber or anything else like that, it's evidence of the ongoing impact that they really have. You think about it. Cats are supplanting dogs now for I think the second time as the most common pet in the Western world. Well, there's a reason for that. Also, cats are easier somewhat to take care of. Of course, with a dog, you're taking it out to go piddle on a tree at midnight. The cat, you give it a box full of cat litter, and it goes and it takes a piss, it takes a shit. You change that, you supply it with food like you're a palace slave. Now, and that's the other thing. Man is clearly the master over dogs, but it's a little bit more ambiguous with felines. There's a reason why the Egyptians... by the way, One mythology is, oh, the Egyptians just loved their cats. Well, yeah, they did. They also sacrificed tens of thousands of them on a regular basis and then mummified them as an offering. It wasn't all pets and cuddles and, oh, look, they killed the rodents that were getting into our wheat crop or something like that. Some of it was a little bit more dark, honestly, and somber. But at the same time, it was part of their spirituality. You have the jackal, but then you also have all of these various cat iconographies going on. You have Bastet and so forth, things like that. And cats were a natural counterpart to man, because for several thousand years, man was more or less reliant upon their presence. And the first time man made the mistake of trying to sever the cord, think about this in perhaps the sense of occult synchronicity. The first time they really start purging the feline population because the Christians became convinced that they were, I guess, witches practicing transfiguration, or they were familiar spirits. The Black Death comes and, kills a third of the population of Europe, while more cat-friendly cultures, I guess, around the world suffered a lower overall attrition rate. So we should probably keep that in mind. Cats are a net benefit to all of humanity. They've never done anything wrong. They're cute. Other than Toxo. Yeah, toxoplasmosis can be a problem. By the way, anyone worried that their indoor cat has toxo, they probably don't. Because specifically they're going to need to go outside, generally speaking, to get infected or interact with a feral population that's already infected. So chances are your little indoor fuzzwads don't have toxoplasmosis. There's an easy test. Go smell some cat piss and see if it smells good to you. If it smells good to you, you might want to go get screened. That's apparently a symptom of having toxoplasmosis. I think originally it's almost co-evolved with cats, and it causes actually infected rodents to smell cat piss and become attracted to it as opposed to afraid like they normally are. And then the cat eats them, and more cats get infected through this basic process. It's really an astonishing degree of evolution that we see with that. It's very, very strange and slightly convoluted. But yeah, cat worship is alive and well in many, many, many cultures. Many untold hundreds of millions of people worship them and give them obeisance, and many of them don't even realize it. So keep petting the little fuzzies. Yes, you could get petted. That's about all. Peace out.